Thank you everyone for coming. Tonight is the Jamaica Select Board regular meeting of Monday, April 24th. It is exactly 7 o'clock. First item of business is a call for any late additions to the agenda.
I want to approve the minutes from the April 5th special meeting for the appointment of the committee.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Did I circulate those though?
Sarah.
Sarah, you sent them.
I
You
did.
sent them.
Yep.
Oh, you're the best. Okay, I'll put that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But also, I have something for the committee, but it's just a quick thing, it's not, and I think that is a public concern. I mean, I'm a liaison from the select board, but it's a committee name change request. Would that be under public concerns?
The only thing is, so did you find out if it's a requirement that it be
I haven't been able
approved?
to get onto my VLCT work.
Because I didn't see that it is, except, I mean, so at this point, it's because it wasn't warned. You can't have a resolution.
So, okay, so the.
Yeah, so it would have to be at the next meeting or at a special meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
Or else we don't even need to.
Or you don't need to, yeah.
I will
I
get
mean,
to the bottom.
Right. Okay.
Never mind.
Thank you, Greg. I missed that. Any other late additions to the agenda? No? All right, so next order of business, I move to approve the minutes from the April 10th Select Board meeting.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yield is spelled Y-I-E-L-D, otherwise nothing.
Could you speak up?
Sorry, I was just saying yield is spelled Y-I-E-L-D, not Y-E-I-L, as in number 3.
Okay. If no further discussion, please, those who approve, please say yay.
Aye.
No abstentions? Thank you. And the next item of business is Brian Zeroff is here, and he's going to give us a quick update on the wastewater project. You can stay where you are.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Brian Zeroff. I'm on the wastewater committee, and I heard there's been some questions about the wastewater project, so I'm just here to say that we're going through the process of completing this feasibility review, which is being funded by a planning advance from the state. And we are approximately at like the 60% level of completion, which means that we haven't really done any field work yet. We've done a lot of the background work, and by we, I'm meaning our engineer has done all the work, but they've completed the desktop review and a bunch of the initial steps to get it going, and right now they're going through all of the state processes to get to a point where they can actually do the field work and start collecting some real data. And so there's really not a lot to report at this point, but I did want to come because, I know there's been some questions about the things that we've been doing in the process and everything. So that's pretty much where we stand. And at this point, if anyone has any questions, we can do my best to answer.
So the engineer is Dufresne Group.
Yes.
Chrissy Haskins, who's a Jamaica resident, is our point person. Do you know, has anyone been able to come out to the one property that's been identified yet to do the, what is it called?
The test pits?
No, even before that, the one where they
Oh.
look for
Yeah, that's one
bird
of
bones
the,
and feathers and, sorry.
Yeah, no, because it is a project that is being funded by the state, there is a bunch of hoops to jump through. Important hoops. And archaeology review is one of them.
Right, the archaeology.
And so it's an ever evolving process. Our engineer is trying to make sure that every single state checkbox gets checked. As of this time, I don't believe that the review has been completed yet, and therefore the site is not cleared at this point to do the test pits.
Okay.
And the infiltration tests.
When is the 90-day anticipated?
Well, that is a very good question, because if we were just running this, if the town was just paying for it, there wouldn't be 30, 60, 90, because it's a requirement by the state so you can hit certain milestones. They're giving us money to do things. They want to make sure we're staying on track. And so a part of that getting everything done is completing these state required reviews. And the timeline for the state required reviews is out of our hands. If an archaeology review is going to take X, Y, or Z amount of time, we have to make sure that we do everything that's required. And I'm not directly familiar with the exact scope, but I know it's an evolving scope. And our engineer is trying to figure out exactly what that timeline is. We would love to be able to say, we'll be ready in June, which we could be if we can go do test pits now, but we're at the mercy of the state review. So we'll be able to report that when we know. And unfortunately right now we don't. But we're going to do everything we can to make sure we get, continue to meet the state requirements to continue with the funding of the project.
Is there some place that people, the public, can find an outline of the goals, where the funding is coming from so far, what the benefits or the priorities are, how that got formed, just general information and background about the project?
Well, I can tell you those things.
Well, then it's on public record.
Yeah, from the start. It's being funded by the state through a planning advance. So according to our town plan, the Jamaica Planning Commission is charged to look at different ways that we can improve our town through a lot of technical review. One of those is looking for ways to, provide alternative water supplies and also wastewater discharge. The Planning Commission became aware that there was a grant that was being offered by the state to conduct a feasibility study to look at alternatives for how we can provide an alternative to wastewater discharge for our town here, where according to current regulations, we have septic systems and drinking water wells that are in close proximity with each other. And so when you have, property transfers, new businesses trying to come in, it doesn't really meet the current state requirements. And it puts a limitation on what people can do in town. And so the purpose of this feasibility study is to look at the potential of putting together a community septic system where we could basically put a number of properties onto one septic system, which would take their personal septic systems offline and remove some of those distance problems that are being created. And so the Planning Commission applied for this grant. We got accepted. As a part of that acceptance, we put out an RFQ, a request for qualifications, request for proposal, and then selected an engineer. And that engineer is conducting this feasibility study. As I mentioned earlier, because it is being funded by the state, there's a 30, 60, and 90% reporting requirement.
Right.
And so if the town was just paying for this on their own, we wouldn't worry about that. We would just say, hey, go do the work, and then here's a final report. But the state, and rightfully so, is offering a planning advance for us to do this work. And so they have these milestone points where we show that, hey, we're on track. we're doing the work, we're on track. So right now we have an application as far as like a final document that is public record that can be reviewed by anyone. And I would be glad to put that up if we can put it up on the website, or I can make it available. If you look at the minutes for the Planning Commission, once we approve them next month, I put in to those minutes my email address where anyone can ask questions, and I'd be willing to send you, actually today, if you give me your email events, I'll send you the application. The 60% level, we had a draft report that was prepared. It's basically moving towards a final report. And so, we're doing that for the state so the project manager can, get the information that he needs to, make sure we're doing everything that we need to do, that we're online, that everything's lining up. And so, once we get to 90%, then we have that includes like going out and actually getting the data. Like I would love to say, hey, we did 8 test pits and the infiltration rate is this many gallons per minute, and it's going to be able to, it looks like we can put in a certain size system that can handle this many users, commercial and residential. But none of that data is known yet. So we have an application that I can put on the website, and I can answer any other question that you have to the best of my ability, but I'm also not the engineer, but I can, being on the wastewater committee, we're in constant communication, so I can get more information.
Brian's being a little
Thank
modest.
you.
His background is apropos.
So I have a question, a clarification. So this is a move from private facilities to more of a town-generated public works project kind of thing?
No, I would say it's a move by the town to allow for all of the buildings that are in town to have something that they can connect to expand their opportunities to be whatever they want to be, whether it's a coffee shop or a library or a restaurant or a residential house without the limitations that are currently present.
So it's kind of a quasi-public works project, because it's, yeah? It's going from a private system to a semi-public system?
Yeah, I would say it is a project being conducted by the town. Yeah, so if we don't have a public works department, but it's being conducted by the town.
Yeah.
I think it's right, it's a terminology thing, so it's like a collective under the auspices of the town. But when the minute you say public works, you're invoking a whole set of regulations and funding that, it's not common. I mean, Mike is here, who's our town administrator, who's probably painfully familiar with these distinctions, but it's a much smaller scale, and it's, it will allow residences that are currently have wastewater systems that are grandfathered under the Clean Slate Statute of Vermont, but which don't actually comply with today's wastewater standards by a long shot. And also in a concentrated area adjacent to the West River. We don't, not that we are aware of any issues, but it's suboptimal from the state's perspective, which is why they're offering this grant money. And Brian, stop me if I'm saying anything that's sideways.
Sounds good to me.
So yeah, it is, confined. Because of what I do for a living in my day job, there are a lot of towns in Vermont where you've got certain residences and businesses that are attached to a communal, either water or wastewater or combined system, but then the rest of the town is not. So when if you're a lawyer doing a real estate transaction, you have to know, wait, is this address is associated with the wastewater or it's not. Jamaica would be one of those towns if the project is feasible and viable, and we can get the funding.
And then can people opt out of it if they're in town? Like, how does that work? Or is there a requirement about who gets to be
Yeah,
there or who doesn't? How does that work? What's the maximum capacity? Like, I know you may not have these answers yet, but I'm super
Yeah.
curious about.
Yeah, the
Who
field work will
influence?
tell us what the maximum capacity
Yeah.
is. You know, no one, it's not like anyone can walk up and say, you have to hook up. You know, so.
Take this subject.
Yeah, it would be like an opportunity-based thing where, hey, we can take in so many users, residential, commercial, public water supplies, and yeah, there are multiple ways to do it. There are multiple ways to pay for it. And as we go through the process, and as we gather information, we can definitely start to put together conceptual ways that we feel would be a good way to go about it.
And what I'm hearing is that that's further down the road. That by the 90%, you think you'll have more data in order to then possibly create some conceptual. Or
Yeah,
like
correct.
That's the timeline.
Yeah, the 90% data will have the field-specific data.
Nice.
And as a part of our planning grant, we had to submit a scope and a budget. The state then approves that scope and that budget. And we put in for 2 town meetings. So we'll warn them, the public can come in, everything will be presented. Any question can get asked. And that's part of the plan.
Nice. Thanks.
Any other questions for Brian? Well, thank you so much, Brian, for coming.
Appreciate
I
it.
think everybody will appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brian's a hydrogeologist. Great. So next up, we have like just a parade of people coming today. Yeah.
I do want to follow up on that from the Selectboard standpoint.
Oh, please.
I still am pushing to just post the 60% report. And it sounds like, the application, if we can put things out there for the public, is it's so informative. And even if we don't know, 90% might be June, might be July, that's a state-driven timeline.
Right.
But to give people the information, reducing uncertainty can improve people's confidence and awareness. When people have uncertainty or they don't have information, they fill in the void,
I think
and often with misinformation. So let's give them the information, and then if they have questions, we
I
can
think-
direct them away from you.
Isn't there?
Yeah, well, I can speak, I am also on the wastewater committee, and it's comprised of 4 individuals, kind of a cross-representative group within the town. The planning commission, as Brian brought up, was discovered this opportunity and said, hey, let's pull together some people on this committee, and me being the liaison, I guess, with the select board. I think, going back, I hear what you're saying, and we've talked about this too. As far as presenting more information, obviously, the more is better. I think the 60% report at this point is an engineer, it's geared toward the public, but it's part of a process that the engineer is working with the state, what needs to be pulled together. And when you said answer more questions, this is gonna ask
True.
30 times more questions than it answers.
But
But I think we can pull out the answers we know. There's so many things we don't know, and I think by presenting things we don't know, it just confuses people. I'm not saying people don't understand, but I think we can pull out pieces we know, as opposed to just putting up a document that's not really geared. It's a working document. It's kind of like a sketch plan. It's kind of like, it's got notes in the.
Right, it's a draft, but I thought there were minutes. I don't know why. I thought I saw the email traffic that there was.
There's minutes
some
of the planning
too.
commission meetings.
Okay.
These meetings that we've had so far, there's been a couple where we've met with representatives from the state regarding financing and stuff like that.
Right.
And the engineer the minutes were discussed the project. It wasn't
Right.
like decisions were made or anything
Right,
like that. So
right.
it wasn't recorded.
Oh.
Not that they weren't recorded, but there's no recorded decisions
Yeah,
made in these meetings. So
Our committee is an independent committee that was a requirement by the state as a part of the application. They said, name 4 people on the application that will be this independent committee that will have a 30, 60, and 90% meeting with the state so we can just make sure you're on your way to producing your final report. And so when we did the meetings, our meetings were the wastewater committee with the state. But we didn't want to be like this secret little meeting. And so we posted it at multiple areas around town and invited the public and then went through the meetings.
This is the one in February?
I believe that was the last one, yeah.
It was at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they had to meet with people at the state. So if people in the state are not available.
I'm just
at other
sharing.
times.
No, I understand that, I'm just sharing.
Well, I
It's
can-
available to the public, but it was also seriously limited to the public by a sense of working schedules.
and I can answer that directly. We have people on this wastewater committee. Myself, I have 2 jobs. We're working to satisfy the requirements of the state.
Right, yeah.
This meeting is for reporting to the state representative. We went around and we're like, when is everyone available to do this? The volunteers that are volunteering their time to do this. And that was the time. And we would love to be able to do it at a better time, but
Well, and just don't get me wrong, I recognize there are limitations to setting any meeting and any calendar. And I guess where I'm coming from is, as far as I'm aware, and I could be wrong on this, so please correct me. There weren't minutes from that meeting. There wasn't a recording of that meeting. There's been no information shared with the general public about that meeting. So what the public, here's what I'm hearing. What the public has experienced is that there are hidden agendas, there's information being kept from us, and there are decisions being made that we're not a part of because they won't share information to date. And I just don't understand why are we afraid of sharing that 60% report? It's gonna generate questions. So what? That's what our job is, to answer questions, to field questions, to say, we don't know
So
yet.
that's not their job. They're volunteering.
No, I'm not
their
saying
time.
them, I'm saying
And
us.
they're,
If
okay,
we
if
don't
you-
want to create, if we want to move forward with projects, but we don't want public reaction, there's a conflict
so
there.
actually I have a request. Do
Okay.
you want to take the application and the draft report, which is actually a work in progress, and summarize them in a form to be pushed out to the public? That would be great.
I wouldn't feel qualified to choose what the public should see or not. I think we should just post it. I've read it. It's great. It's good information. It answers a lot of the questions that were asked today. I think a lot of people would be like, oh, I had no idea that there was this backstory. I had no idea that there was concern about wells and wastewater being close to each other in the river. Like, there's good information in
Oh,
there.
that information's been pushed out a lot. I'm sorry, there have been so many public meetings where all of those goals were circulated and pushed out.
So
Maybe it
what's the
predates you
problem
moving
with-
here. No,
What's the problem with posting it now? I just don't understand that.
there's quite a lot of blanks in there, highlights, and
But you put a disclaimer, this is incomplete, it's only 60%, we don't have all the
that's what
information.
we're saying now. So- And I'm not denying the
Yeah,
sense of
I think we're
Summary
creating
or something.
perception of the lack of transparency.
yeah, please, Brian, go ahead.
First of all, I want to say that in no time during this process did I ever think I was working behind the scenes or
Oh, I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case to anybody.
It's beyond.
But when people don't have information,
yeah.
they create.
There's a perception.
Anyone can come to the planning commission meeting. It's at 7 p.m. right here, every third Monday, and I'll answer any questions I can. I threw my email address down. I'll be able to meet with anyone at any point in time. The 60% report is a public document because it's at the state. You can foil it.
Right.
So it's at the state?
It's
So this
state. Well, the state has a copy. See, here's the thing.
You say it's a public document, but this is available to the
Can you let
public.
her finish? Can you let her finish?
Here's the thing. Number one, it's always weird when it comes to draft report versus final report. A draft report is not an official document. If you go to the state and foil it, I don't know if you're going to get it. People perceive it. It's a cloudy area, and I'm trying to like work with the professionals and what's best, and I'm going to ask the state directly if, hey, can we post,
Please do.
if we were doing this, like I mentioned before, if we were doing this in the state, the town was paying for this to be done, the first report that came out would be up, but there's this whole, it's like we can't go into the field right now and just do the field work because we have to check all the boxes for the state. And I'll ask the PM directly, and so let me find out about that and I'll let you know.
Thank you, because it just seems like if it's a state project, you just said it's a public record.
Yeah.
But the public here, maybe they can get it, maybe they can go to the state site, and if that's the case,
I don't know.
We're not trying to make
I
it
don't know.
hard.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't
about
know.
that.
There's a camera. I mean, I don't want to say something.
Right.
And this isn't to trip anyone, it's just
You know the way I see it?
to offer information to inform people so they can be part of the process.
Yeah. I see it like you have a favorite author. There's a new book coming out, and it's a 20-chapter book, and they're on chapter 10. And
That doesn't affect
and you get-
lifestyle at homes.
no, I'm trying a metaphor. I'm trying a metaphor, not a specific thing that's directly related. And you can like.
Yeah.
Do you want the first 10 chapters, or do you want the whole book?
Or just the last page.
Yeah, and then people read the first 10 chapters and they're like, well, what happens at the end?
And the 11th chapter might have been written already, but they're still working on the second.
Yeah, and then they changed the ending. Well, you said that, let us make one report.
Might it be possible for the committee to just post a little brief report of where you are now and what are the knowns? Would that satisfy what you're?
I just think there's
looking
been
for?
nothing shared in the February meeting, and I understand the reason for it. But no minutes have been shared, no recordings been shared, no reports been shared, nothing's been shared. So the public is sitting since, when was the last time there was anything offered about it? And
Okay.
I just
So
think
here,
that
can I
creates
just-
uncertainty and that creates a lack of
Well,
It's
trust.
just it's so important to understand that this committee is, I guess I feel like there's a disconnect. So this is not a committee like the Planning Commission or the Select Board. It's exactly as Brian has said, they're
It's a
taking
planning
state.
commission.
No,
Planning meeting.
but the Water Committee meeting is not the Planning Commission.
Right, and
So they're taking state money and they're operating in accordance with the requirements of the state versus if it were us spending the money in accordance with the budget, or even the Planning Commission spending the money in accordance with the Planning Commission budget, I could totally see that. But they're operating within a rubric which is not governed, which we don't govern.
right?
The state does, and they're following those rules. I guess I would appreciate if there could be some presumption that folks are volunteering their time, and there have been many other public meetings where we've talked about this project, the scope of the project in Selectboard, and also in the Planning Commission. So I guess to the extent there are folks in town that are feeling that way, if we could share that. It's absolutely not that way, there's just not good information yet. And we've got the benefit of these wonderful, really, people who are volunteering a lot of their time, just, in an effort to improve the town. Like that, as long as it's understood that that's what where this is coming from, Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't, yes, I do, and I hear that, and I respect everyone who's volunteering their time, absolutely. I think also that's beside the point, because one, if you're saying it's a state project, well, everyone in town pays state taxes, so they should have information on anything that is involved in that sense. And it's not disparate. I love the work that you're doing and the effort and the energy and the work that's involved is, I think it's huge, and I absolutely respect that. My only thing is, with a lack of information, like when you look at like change management, the first steps in change management is to not just share the vision, but share the information and create a sense of buy-in and urgency. And we're not doing that. We're creating uncertainty and a void of information, which in all social study models creates distrust and a questioning and a filling in of the blanks. So if we want to filter the information or choose some out of the report and really put a header on it in bold highlight, this is not complete, this is absolutely, I'm not saying, to just, but I do think we're creating a misperception of the town that we're not being informative, that we're moving forward on something, and it creates the perception, and even if we know that's not true,
Right.
perception is reality for the beholder.
Right, right.
So we're creating the perception of either mistrust or hidden agendas, and I know that's not the case. Like I said, I've read the report, but I've had that benefit being on this side of the table. I think we need to give that information. Just any change management model, any, thinking about, it's not just public works, it's just the condition of being a human person. What do we do when we don't have information? We create stories, and the wrong stories are being created, and I think we want to get ahead of that.
I just want to clarify what I heard. So the wastewater committee is not a public committee, not required to create minutes, not required to, that's just a committee of volunteers who are specifically looking at this wastewater issue.
And comply with the state's requirements.
And working
yeah.
with the state. And the planning commission is also involved because obviously they need to be. The planning commission is public, is required to share minutes or what, I just want to clarify that that's
Yes.
what I heard.
Yes.
I also heard that the wastewater committee is what held the meeting in February.
Correct.
And that was to comply with the state requirement to provide 60% review.
The requirement is only that that group of people meet with the state.
Right.
It's not required to
Right.
be offered to the public.
But the wastewater committee decided, as an act of transparency, to warn that meeting and to invite the public.
Mhm.
So the gray area then is what's required to be disclosed as a result of that warned public meeting by a committee that is not
Well, we
required.
didn't warn a
Right.
public meeting.
It was not a warned public meeting, it was just
It was not a warned
advertised.
public
Okay.
meeting, it was just, hey, we're having a meeting, anyone
Right.
is
Got
welcome.
it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
no.
by a
You're not
committee
subject to
that
the-
is not subject, got it. So, then.
The old no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, clearly.
No, but I want to state that on the public record that I understand, I wanted to clarify that to state on the public record that this is a committee that is not required to offer public minutes, that created this meeting to comply with state requirements, then invited the public to be a part of it.
Yeah.
The question then was, can we share information that came from that meeting, and how does that information get shared? There's a strong argument that there are several people in town who are curious about that and haven't known where to get information about that. I think the minutes from this meeting will help in that regard as well.
Maybe we're doing it now.
And, right, we just had a great presentation, that kind of thing. Where was I going with that? to say that, you know, is it possible then to, what I heard was that the application was part of the planning commission's process?
The planning commission prepared the application, and then it went on to the select board for review, approval, and signature.
We approved it, signed it.
So that is a part of public record.
Yes, and there are minutes.
So could potentially be put at the top of the website or whatever. Just
Well, I
to
think we
remind
are.
people.
I mean, clearly, we'll
So
close the
that
application.
could happen.
Right.
But then regarding the results of the 60%, it could be that there's a summary of that. It could be that you share a draft. It could be that you say, we'll share more information once we have more information, but that is not a public record requirement. That's more a let's be broad and transparent. in
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Two things. Number one, that was a great summary.
I do this for a living.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was amazing, thank
You
you.
saved me just a bunch of time. That's perfect. I don't even have to add anything to it. Number two, maybe three things. Number two, I do not want to be the person taking the minutes on this agenda.
Thank God for clarity.
And number three, we're creating a report. We're just over halfway through the report, and we met with the state to say, this is what we got so far. We're on our way to the end. And that was the 60% report. And that, yes, that is what's being discussed. Because we're moving to this actually completing a report, do we post it along the way?
Right.
Or do we wait to see at the end when there's 100% full public disclosure of the information that we
I
get?
feel like it's a little bit of a misnomer. We keep calling it the 60%
That's what I was gonna
report.
make a point
It's
to.
actually a report that's only 60% done.
Right.
So you've
So
heard the
it's
expression,
not-
the making of the sausage.
Right.
This is still sausage. We're
Yeah.
grinding. These poor guys are out there grinding. And hence Brian's good question, which is, could we even, I'm not sure we can post
That's
it.
a great point. 'cause
I don't know.
I just want to make sure, I don't know.
Right,
all
right.
things like that.
This was not a presentation of 60% of the project.
Right.
This was only 60%.
The committee had just showed that we were at 60% of the report
So
being.
there's 40% of it missing.
Right.
At least
Yes.
40%.
Yeah.
Which we
So that's-
don't know where.
Right, and I realized that just at some point just now, like, that's such a misnomer. We're not referring to it properly, because it's not conveying its actual condition.
It's good clarity.
A 500-year storm is not something that happens every 500 years.
Right.
It's something that happens,
So many meetings about that too.
there's a 0.2% chance of it happening every year.
For 500 years.
So Brian, you'd be willing to ask the project manager from the state just his perspective on
I'll get it.
how these things go?
I'll ask everyone. For sure.
And on our end, if I can make a proposal, not a motion, but just
Yeah.
if maybe we can work together to, and I'll take the point, not putting that work in, but to at least summarize key points, take out the.
More or less, why are we doing this? I think
Right.
that's important.
And that's the background, yeah, it's great
Not
information.
of
right.
anything that's in behind the sausage, but why are we even making
Yeah,
sausage?
and
Right.
to summarize that and
Yeah.
share it and see where we go.
And to say that there was a report out to the state at 60%, and, you know, what are some of the challenges? Anything that you've got kind of the time and energy to prepare, that would be
I can help.
amazing.
All right,
That was really helpful, thank you.
yeah.
Yes, thank you, Brian.
And for all the work
Thank you.
it's gone into this to date, yeah.
Any other thoughts from the select board? Karen, did I see your hand up at one point?
I did. You mentioned that the meeting in February was at a bad time, but this room was packed
Yeah.
at the time. The planning commission meetings, where it's been mentioned numerous times for people to come and get answers, Brian, how many people come to the planning commission meetings?
I said at the 60% meeting, I was like, wow, if the planning commission meeting was like this.
We need to move the planning commission
Yeah,
to
it'd
3
be
in the
interesting.
afternoon.
Yeah.
So I go once in a while and I'm
Yeah.
like the only one, so, if people have questions, they just need to ask the right people, and it's out there who to ask. And I don't think anything is being hidden.
Right,
So
right.
I'll challenge when you say it's out there, who to ask.
It's been talked about at these meetings numerous times for
So
the past however
People
many
who are
months.
just catching up would have to go back through like which meeting, I'm just saying it's not like it's a clear, they have to go back and do the research of like 20 meetings and watching all the Zoom recordings or reading the minutes. It's not like there's a link on the website saying, hey, if you have a question about this, talk to this person.
Or
But they know
it's not-
Wonderful town clerk.
Covered in
they ask them to
writing.
talk.
And I'll say all the planning commission minutes are on the website.
And not even
It's
force
right
somebody to.
there.
But I would like to build on Karen's point and say, a little plug for the planning commission. It's once a month.
Right, go.
Go. It's
Yeah.
great. These guys are great. There's enormous institutional knowledge in this group and expertise. My husband's on it. No, just kidding. Although he is. They're really interesting, and it's not that much of a time commitment.
And if you have questions, yeah, show up to meetings, come.
Yes.
Or call Brian or I or anything. I mean, that part of it, I think, is what was being talked about as far as how accessible it would take some time to dig through minutes, et cetera, but
That's
it only
right.
takes one phone call to say, you know,
Right.
Sarah, what's Greg's phone number?
Right.
Somebody needs a question, or Brian, or whatever, yeah.
Susan, you had
I
something?
just want to, I feel like the obvious first phone call could be to Mike Teller. Sorry, Mike. I mean, you're the town administrator, so in terms of like
Defer to the select. The protocols.
being somebody who could answer initial questions
Or point you in the right
point you in the
direction.
right direction,
Right.
or because you're here at consistent times and available, and that might be an easy first step as well.
Anyone can show up to a scheduled select board or planning commission meeting, raise their hand, and be completely up to speed.
Nice.
Great. Well, that was, tough points and a really good discussion. And awesome. Thank you, everyone, for participating. So I think I'm looking around. Everyone? Good. All right, so now you've got a tough act to follow, Mike. Mike is going to give us some readouts from projects that he's working on.
Well, Derek had asked some of the things I've been doing, and I started in the end of November, been pretty busy. My schedule really kind of shifted to more of a full-time situation as of last week. With the holiday or the vacation, it was a little difficult to work a full week, but we are focused on really right now working on the buildings, trying to get the 4 buildings at least that I'm working on energy efficient. And that includes this building, the Old Town Hall building, the bank building, that's the Historic Preservation Society building, and the library. We're all looking at each individual building and seeing what would be the best way to make it energy efficient. There is a lot of money right now through the state, through ARPA funds, dedicated through the General Service Building Division, where we could at least get some energy efficiency assessments done on the properties. I'd say 2, if not 3 of the buildings definitely need insulation in the ceiling areas. Seems to be a common theme in Vermont buildings that are over 100 years old. They don't have any insulation. And that's certainly the case with the Old Town Hall, that we do need to get that insulated if we're going to spend a lot of money to put in a good energy system there. But we also got to be working on some other projects. I've been working on RFPs for South Hill Road, both the replacement of the culverts and doing the paving there. I've been working with the Wyndham Regional Commission too on my appointment, serving as a board commissioner for the group and serving on their energy commission that was just appointed. Let's see what else. Transfer station. I'm near the completion of the recertification package. It includes the application, a facility management plan that I created, photos, the tipping fees, public notification, all the abutters to that property that are going to be notified as part of this public involvement process. I've got the draft completed. I'm going to share it with the board at the next meeting, but I would like to hopefully at least get the letters out to the abutting property owners, letting them know that this recertification for the transfer station is coming up. But pretty excited. It hasn't been done in a long time, and we certainly have some projects that we're looking at, both replacing the attendant building and also looking at maybe some modifications to the demolition dumpster areas to make it a little bit safer and more comfortable, I think, for users and for the attendant that's manning that operation there. But I've been somewhat involved with the wastewater. I've certainly read the study, and I've been also involved with some of the transportation initiatives here in town, looking at the culvert inventory. I had done that type of work previously with the regional commission, so I'm pretty well versed in that. And really anything kind of as it comes up, I'm here to help the town with projects and initiatives, depending. I'm also looking at potentially a sidewalk project too, if it makes sense on Depot Street. And those are some of the things, but anything in particular, open for.
I have a question that might be entirely premature, and this is more third party community whispers in my ear. What would happen if we did not pass the certification? Is there any concern of that? Is there anything we need to be worried about as a town for the transfer station certification?
Nothing that I'm aware of. I've been in communication with the Waste Management District for Wyndham County. They haven't referenced any concerns. I think we're really just following the process. It's been probably negated in the past, and we're just trying to meet that compliance. And we're pretty close to getting that ready.
Mike's being gracious. I mean, it's I think the recertification is mandatory every certain, is it 5 or 10 years? 10 years. And I think there's sort of a natural attrition that can happen over 10 years. And I do think the requirements were a little bit different 10 years ago. But no matter what we submitted the last time was pretty thin, I guess I would say. So this has been a very healthy process. Thank God we had Mike coming on, because we were just sort of handling it with amongst us little chickens, and it's suboptimal considering the amount of information that has to be gathered. So Mike has been doing a fair bit of, from scratch work, documentation, etc. But this, ultimately the commission wants it to be certified. So they do, and stop me if I'm overstating anything, but from my period of time in that role, they want to give you the tools to comply and to be successful. So they provide support, but ultimately you still have to create the documentation, and you have to go through the steps. So, does that help?
Oh, like I said, it was third party.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
mumblings of other people that when I was at this transfer station, I was saying, what if we didn't get certified? What's
That
the
would stay.
repercussions? I was like, I have no idea.
I think in general, the state doesn't want to fail you on any of these things, whether it's a
Yeah.
water test or, there's a lot of, whether it's.
They're going to support you.
They want
be
to
successful.
encourage compliance for safety and for environmental, and there's a lot of reasons why. They're not gonna say no, they want to fix it.
Right.
Which again is passing on.
Yeah.
Good.
Any other questions for Mike? Thank you. Any others?
Thanks.
Thanks, sir. So the RFP update, so the mowing envelopes are gonna come, remind me, Sarah, is it coming at the 8th or the following one? No, I can't remember. The RFP for the mowing. Did I talk to you about that?
Cemetery, I don't know if I know.
The cemetery memo.
I know a little, but I don't don't know the specific dates.
Oh, okay. I think so. The cemetery mowing RFP is gonna come back. It's not the next meeting, which is May 8th, it's the following meeting. And we'll be able to respond to those then. So that's not terribly exciting. So we've got a liquor license and a tobacco substitute endorsement, and Parker Rice is attending now. He submitted the request for the tobacco substitute endorsement for us to approve. I should say preliminarily, just sort of as an out, just a baseline. So the select board's review and approval of virtually all of this category of licenses, whether they be liquor licenses or lottery, cigarettes, or substitutes. Although we do, the state does still send all of these, require that these applications come to the select board. The select board's role is highly circumscribed. So if the town does not have ordinances that regulate those things, the town is limited as to the basis upon which it may or may not approve. It would also include if the applicant had violated laws related to the subject matter of the license. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm sure there are other bases, but I just think as we ask Parker questions and we consider it as a board, we need to understand that there is that limitation. Does anybody I'm relatively new on this, so did you want to add anything?
No, I don't have anything to add. I was curious, so that I think
Yeah.
addressed what I had been hearing
Right,
too, just
right.
recently. I mean, that.
Did you want to add anything, Sarah, to that or no? Yeah. Sarah very helpfully kind of pointed out to me that it might be good for me to share that.
That was a perfect summary.
Yeah. Yes.
Jump in here for a second, I'm sorry, Greg, interrupting.
No, go ahead.
No, it's actually your turn, Parker, so please do.
This is a license we've had in the past. I do believe, and that's off the top of my head, that we may have let it lapse at one point. We are currently licensed through the end of April. I would prefer just out of good protection to have the license. Currently, I don't believe we're actually carrying any tobacco substitutes. We were about 5 years ago when Juul first came out. We were carrying it. We quickly kind of saw what was going on with the targeted advertising to people who shouldn't have been advertised to, and we stopped carrying them. What we've done since then is intermittently had a few brands here and there that were really not targeted towards any young group, or their marketing was very different, and it's really different. We're trying to give up smoking, but this is not a big part of our business. As I said, right now, I don't think we carry a single item. I do like to have the license in case we get an item in on an order and all of a sudden find out we have to be licensed for it. I would hate to have to go through this process. This is not my hill to die on, but I also want to make sure everyone knows we're not selling a lot of this to anyone right now at all, and definitely not selling it to anyone we shouldn't be ever. I'm open to any questions, but again, this is not something that, the end all be all for us.
Just to clarify, Parker, you're with, is it the Rawsonville Market, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
Any questions? So I'm going to make a motion to approve the tobacco substitute endorsement. It's in our box. We looked at it at the last meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion from the public or the board?
Just, I guess one other question for Parker, and it's not in relation to approving or not, but the Thrives, the West River Valley Thrives group was just sharing that best practice is to make sure those items are kept behind the counter and out of sight for youth. And I was just curious if that's something you follow when you do carry those products, or if it's something you thought about.
Good question. So the reason we have cigarettes on the counter that you can see it's a very small offering is because they're caught on camera that way for theft of our staff do, and just anyone getting sticky fingers, that's a pretty easy thing to steal. When we did have the Juul product, we did not have any of the advertising. They were kind of kept on the side next to a phone. To your point, not visible, because that is something that's more attractive to kids. Again, we don't have it now, but we've tried to kind of toe that line of how to make sure we're not getting robbed and how to make sure things aren't getting lost, but also making sure they're not too visible. So I don't think we're doing the best we could, but we're trying to both have sales, not have theft, and not have them in plain sight of most customers. That's probably not what you wanted to hear, but we're trying.
No, that's perfect, thank you.
Karen?
And I'm sorry, by the way, not to be there. I normally try to come to these meetings when I'm on, but the Stratton Foundation's scholarship for college is tonight, and we're giving out 18 scholarships, so I'm running between Zoom meetings. So I'm sorry I'm doing this remotely.
All right, congrats, thank you. Karen?
When I had the store across the street, I carried electronic cigarettes, and there were quite a few adults who came in who relied on those, so they wouldn't smoke. I think it's an important thing. I think there are locals here who are using them to not smoke. So
Substitute one piece of crap for another.
Yes.
so I think it's important to have those options.
Okay, so, yeah, the motion was seconded, so all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. None opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, Parker.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, really good questions and comments. And we also had a liquor license. Will you pull that up? Thank you.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, would you? Thank you.
This is for a, I don't know what the special events permit from the manufacturer. The manufacturer is Whetstone Station Restaurant and Brewery. They're located in Brattleboro, and they are seeking a permit to do a tasting event at the Jamaica State Park on Saturday, May 6th, for between 12 and 4 p.m.
I'll make a motion to approve the special event permit as recited by Greg.
I'll second.
Any discussion, other than it sounds like a really fun thing to do?
It is during the
Saw it on Facebook.
water release.
I was like, I don't know what brought them to Jamaica, but it sure sounds like fun.
Well, they
They're
are
doing a Jamaica State Park beer.
weird.
Vermont.
Oh, it's literally
But
gonna
they're
be,
doing a Vermont
They're
State
doing
Park
Parks
and
and
they're starting with Jamaica State Park.
and it's literally gonna have that as the name?
Yeah. And then it's also coincides with the whitewater release.
What, oh,
But
And
yeah,
greenhouse.
so the tree has to be
And
removed.
Plans for parks across the state.
Pints for parks, okay.
Okay.
All right, that's amazing. So I've made a motion.
I seconded.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion other than that? Sorry, I got distracted by the thought of being outside sipping beer at the Jamaica State Park in a week and a half. Just kind of took me out of the space. If no further discussion, everybody, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. No abstentions or denials. Okay, great. So the next topic on the agenda is that we need to appoint a sign administrator. That's because Terry was our able sign administrator as a leader, in advance, knowing that we needed a new sign administrator, I did go ahead and ask Mike if he would agree to act in that role because I did not want to offer him up without first discussing it. So I'm going to make a motion to approve Mike Teller as the town sign administrator.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
I assume you accepted then?
Sure.
I would characterize his acceptance as reluctant.
We were fighting over it earlier.
Oh, ha, ha, ha.
Who was gonna have to say
Yeah, exactly. That was the fight. It doesn't come up much, but when it does, the ordinance needs to be complied with, so. Any other discussion? With that, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. No nays.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike, so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mike.
you took one for the team.
And so the discussion, a follow-up discussion, not about him being administrator, would be if there are signs we want to have conversations about, people should go with the mic, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And if you, more importantly, so before you put up a sign, you are supposed to go to either the planning commission or the sign administrator and get approval. There are guidelines. We don't, this town has very little in the way of any kind of zoning or ordinances, but we do have a sign ordinance we reworked it.
3, 4, 5 years, something,
Yeah.
recently.
Recently.
Yeah, and that is on the
Years.
website.
Right.
It's, yeah, okay.
And there's a penalty for those who don't.
There
It's
is.
significant.
It is. It's really, it's very Jamaica, so we like to let people know, and hopefully work with us. But yes,
We're
Derek,
gonna
that's a
strive
very
for
good point.
compliance, not
Yes.
fining people.
Right.
Usually not the way to take things.
We try to, what is it, beat them with niceness or whatever? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the next one is complicated and not complicated. So Karen is here, who is the secretary of the imminently dissolved Village Cemetery Association. This relates to the cemetery right on Route 30, just past, if you're coming from here, just past the Masonic Lodge. It has been independent of the town since its inception in the 1800s or 17. I can't remember.
Right, it's never been a town cemetery.
Right, it's never been, and it's
It was
been a
privately
cemetery.
owned at one point.
Right, it was owned by a family, and then the family transferred it out. In any event, it has long been a topic of consideration of the association to dissolve. Vermont statutes require that municipalities take over cemeteries when private associations dissolve. At a meeting earlier, I circulated to the board the articles of dissolution and the minutes of the meeting and the actual plan of dissolution. All of these are statutory requirements. The association itself has funds that the town will be taking over if we agree to a resolution, which I'll read in a moment. But there's a total of about $70,000 in various accounts, one of which is a perpetual care account, which is that's a type of account that supports perpetual assets like cemeteries. And the town would be obligated to continue that perpetual care account essentially in exactly the form it is now. So the town currently has some, and I'm repeating information that Karen has shared at an earlier select board meeting, so I'll go quickly. I think we have 7 currently under management. Do we have 7 cemeteries? Yeah. There are some other cemeteries that are currently managed through private associations, but we will now, once we pass the resolution today, that would make it 8. We would then, it would be included in our mowing cycle, all of the other cycles of care that we give to cemetery associations. And I'm going on a little bit longer to say, I'm gonna tee up what will probably be a relook at the fees that the town charges for the cemeteries because they are woefully out of date. To a point where it's kind of silly. And the fees don't contribute to their ongoing support. Now, there are perpetual care accounts that generate income that defrays that expense, but this is just placeholder for everyone here. I am going to, in relatively short order, once we finish this, propose a new schedule of fees. Anyway, I'm going to propose a resolution for the board's adoption. It is resolved that in consideration of the dissolution of Village Cemetery Association of Jamaica, Vermont, Inc., accomplished on this date and effective as of April 30th, 2023, and the unanimous agreement by the association officers and directors that all lands owned or held by it as of that date for cemetery purposes and all perpetual care funds, trust funds, and all of the property held or owned by it as of that date, less dissolution expenses, shall be transferred to the town of Jamaica, that the town shall accept such lands and assets from the association by deed and otherwise, and thereafter said lands shall become public burial grounds, and the town shall hold the perpetual care funds and trust funds in trust for the care, improvement, and embellishment of the lots therein, according to the terms upon which they were held by the association. So if I could have a second, Adam? Okay. The only other point I would say in discussion and then open for everybody is that if this is approved today, the next step is to, before the end of the month hopefully, is Karen will sign a deed. I have a Schedule A, which is the property description already prepared. We just have to prepare the deeding language, which I'll do in my office. And Karen is authorized under the resolutions of the Cemetery Association to sign that deed and deed the property over to us. And we would take possession of the accounts and the perpetual, and responsibility for the perpetual care fund. So with that, I know that's a lot, it's a mouthful. It's virtually all statutory driven, so what I just read to you is essentially a recitation of the Vermont statutes. Any question? Karen, can I just say before we actually officially vote, thank you so much for all of the time, care, and attention and shepherding that you have personally put into this cemetery over what feels like your entire lifetime and kept it beautiful and really cared for it. And it's so important and meaningful. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you from the board.
Well, I'm a newcomer. The others are all in their 80s and 90s.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good point. I'm going to recite all of their names as well. Karen's father, Bruce Chapin.
Who turns 90.
Turns 90 like any
In a
minute.
month.
Right, yeah. Steve Clark, who was a banker for many years and is our neighbor and he's been the treasurer, I don't know how long, but
For a
long time. Karen, who I've mentioned, Bob O'Brien, who's a trustee, also a generation, and Ray Valentine, equally, he was the trustee and a director. So a deep, deep thank you to all of them. Thank you for pointing that out, Karen. So any questions? Yeah.
Yes. So is the cemetery full, or could I opt to be buried there?
It is not, and Karen can answer that.
There's quite a bit of space in the cemetery.
And who is responsible for, who are the grave diggers? I mean, is that now a town responsibility?
No, there are sextons, but you hire someone, right?
Yes.
I see.
So if it's a cremation, then the sexton can dig the hole, or someone in your family can dig the hole.
Yeah.
If it's a grave, then a grave digger comes in.
So for people who are cremated, often it's done privately with one individual.
With the funeral home.
Either with the funeral home or someone who does that work. If you're agnostic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, if no further questions, all those in favor of adopting the resolution as I recited it, please say aye.
Aye.
No abstentions or nays. Thank you. Okay, so the next one is really just to give everybody, I want to say publicly and to everybody in the room, a heads up. Thank you, Karen, who drove this a bit. GMP is offering to come to various towns, particularly Green Mountain Power. Green Mountain Power. Thank you, Greg. This is an outgrowth of, I think, a number of things, but we are all in this town painfully remembering the last big storm, when many of us were without power for a long time. We have some real hot spots in Jamaica, but this whole corridor, the so-called banana belt, does suffer substantially, and there have been concerns about how Green Mountain Power goes about analyzing and making decisions around when trees are taken down, when power lines are shored up and areas are cleared in order to avoid future power outages. Like I said, it's been a chronic problem. So Karen urged us to organize, to take Green Mountain Power up on their offer, and to have them actually present to us directly. And it'll be, it's been promised to me that it'll be fairly Jamaica focused, so it's gonna be this region, Route 30, Route 100, some of the major routes in the town of Jamaica. And they'll be available also for questions and an iterative discussion. So that's at the next regular meeting, and I'll put it early in the agenda, just in case, hopefully we get nice turnout. And even if it's just us, there'll be a lot of questions, I'm sure.
So Green Mountain Power has been very concerned about this, not just other people concerned about what Green Mountain Power is doing. So Green Mountain Power is trying to figure out how best to deal with this with more frequent, harder storms that take out the power.
Right.
And Laura Sibilia has been instrumental in getting this done also.
That is true. And I think too, I'm gonna get right to it, but to your point of, in the absence of information, that's, I think GMP is trying to get ahead of that vacuum, and, in the face of people who are really suffering, by trying to get out there with information.
I wanted to say that I did attend the meeting that Laura Sibilia organized, and it was very informative. On the, Green Mountain Power side, but on the citizen side, I think we have a lot that we could ask of our citizens, and that's preparation. And I wish we had a website, a town website, that had information available. I mean, I go on that website and it's like, I'm looking for stuff and I don't find anything. And I brought up along my handy dandy little wind-up radio. I don't know if you know about these.
I have one.
Yeah, I walked around my house 15 minutes doing this, and I had power for half an hour or so. You can plug in your iPhone, your cell phone, and charge it by winding it up. I'm looking for someone to build a bicycle so I can, ride my way to battery power. But we need to encourage our citizens to and not to call the power company, the first day and say, when are we going to get power back? Know that you're not going to have power for probably a couple of days, maybe 3, and be prepared. It's just part of life in Vermont.
Right. So it's like a suggested list of things that you should probably have if you live in Vermont.
Absolutely.
One of the big.
This is to be
What was it?
expected. This is not a surprise.
Susan's pointing to her husband.
This is $25.
You can get them less.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a fancy one. Mine's not. All mine does is have radio. But it's great because then
Well, I thought mine
it's
also
going
already
on.
had radio until I went online and I read the specs and I said, oh my goodness, I never opened this thing up.
It has a USB. I can plug it in.
Yeah, exactly.
While we're on that topic, just as a public safety mention, remind everyone who's watching or will watch, if there are tree limbs on fire, if there's lines on the ground, don't go near it. Stay at least a telephone pole or farther away, because the electromagnetic fields can be much farther than we think. So don't think, oh, I can walk around it or over it. Just stay back. There's often, even as the fire department responds, we can't do anything except cordon it off until Green Mountain Power comes and shuts down the power. So please don't try to put out those fires. Don't try to get limbs off of power lines. Just sit tight and be prepared. Do some research, and I'm sure I can talk to the fire department about having sort of an info session, but in general, be prepared and do research and stay away from power lines when they're down, or trees, limbs that are on fire. We can't actually even put them out. We should just wait.
A telephone pole away, huh?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
It's farther than you think.
Guilty. Yeah. All right. Thank you. So, any other questions on the Green Mountain Power presentation. I'll never say GMP again, Craig. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Now you can.
Now I can, everybody says it, I have to say it, right. So I will now address approving the minutes of the April 5th meeting. Thank you, Sarah, for circulating those. I move to approve the minutes.
A second.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? No? No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. No abstentions or nays. Okay, so now it's, we will approve timesheets for the town office listers, the highway and transfer station. Did anybody have any questions on that or on the pay orders? Thank you, Sarah, again,
I
so
got
much.
answers.
She's got answers if anybody has questions. So we'll take it that. So while we're going through and doing our signing, it is public concerns time. I mean, we've had quite a really wonderful discussion today, so. Any other items or?
I just wanted to raise the question about the website. What do we project for a website that's useful?
Told you.
So it sounds to me like you'd be interested in us putting it on a list of, on Mike's to-do list, just kidding.
Yeah.
But on in order to update right now it's essentially been the effort of those of us who are volunteering. It was Sarah, a lot of yeoman's work. Tom Tolbert, when he was on the board, also did a lot of maintenance. He updated what I kind of call the scaffolding, so what you don't see behind the coding, etc. He updated that to a newer version of the software. But in terms of its look and feel, its organization, that has not changed in, I don't know how long.
Since I've been here.
Really?
Yeah, I've always just kept it the way it is. Like,
Yeah.
I got my page of training and
Right.
I went from there.
I wonder if we have budget.
I'm capable of redoing the website, I just don't have time right now.
Right now.
It's something that's been on my radar for a couple of years, and I'm just recently I'm at the point where I feel comfortable enough because I've learned enough about using WordPress, that I feel I could do it, I just don't have time to do it,
So, but you would consider taking it on when?
Absolutely, I like doing websites, it's very fun.
Thank you for raising it. All right.
And I'm a writer, so if you need help with content, editing or anything.
We're always looking for volunteers, so absolutely. Suzanne?
Two things. The Jamaica Community Church is offering a paddle dinner on May 6th.
What's a paddle dinner?
Because it coincides with the whitewater release. So they're offering a spaghetti supper.
After you drink your beer, walk up and eat.
Exactly. I think it's $8. I can't remember what time it starts, but it's available to the community and to paddlers who are coming into the community. So spaghetti supper, May 6th. And I'm sure that they would be happy for volunteers if people would like to help serve or clean up or that kind of thing as well. So wanted to mention that. What was the other thing? There were two. I don't know. I don't remember the other thing.
Was it the issue around the deed for the library?
No, I thought we were gonna wait and bring that up.
Okay. Just, yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say also that the Jamaica, the Water Street, yeah, I blank because I remember community one. Anyway, we are making good progress and we are looking forward to presenting at the next May. And we hope to change our name. Anything else?
Karen?
Jamaica Old Home Day plans are coming along, still September 16th. If anybody wants to be involved, we've got pizza that's going to be here, tacos, and maybe hamburgers and hot dogs that day, and all sorts of events. Jamaica Community Arts Council, we are working on movie night. And different concerts and events, so we,
Like an outside movie night or a movie night in town hall?
inside.
Inside, okay.
Firefly season is approaching.
Yes, Firefly season. Great, thank you. Anything else? All right, well, thank you everyone for attending. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Signature.